America will be safe again. I'm coming for you.
The United States of Homelander has officially begun. A lot went down in the last 30 minutes of this episode, and we're about to go in like shapeshifters 2 fingers into Hughie's butt. Okay, a little bit too far, as it is time to break down the final episode of Season 4 of The Boys. Spoilers ahead. Now back at Vought, we see the 7 following the orders of Homelander as they take out the employees on the hit list. We see Firecracker shoots a guy, we see the Deep kills a guy by punching him in the face, and we ultimately see that Noir kills the other Ashley as he gets his
murder boner.
As his journey to become the Black Noir continues. Now back with Butcher, Mallory, and Ryan, we see Mallory telling Ryan the truth about his father, Homelander, as she spills the beans about the assassination plan, but also she tells him about Flight 37. Now Ryan doesn't believe anything that Mallory is telling him until she tells him about the truth about what Homelander did to his mom. Now that the cat's out of the bag, as they tell him about their ultimate plan, which is to have Ryan be trained to kill his own father in Homelander. Now Ryan wants to take a moment to take all this in and wants to take a moment outside, but unfortunately we see that they apply the pressure on him as Ryan realizes that this whole area is secured and meant to hold a Supe as powerful as he is, and if he doesn't agree, they're gonna lock him in. Now in the last ditch effort, we see Mallory brings up her grandkids and how Ryan has basically helped her through her grief of loss of losing her grandkids, and basically he's become family to her. But again, Ryan doesn't want to hear that. He just wants to take a moment for himself, but we watch as Mallory begins to back away and she's about to press the button to lock them in. Unfortunately for her, we see that Ryan pushes her so hard, very similar to what he did to stuntman Quaid as he kills Mallory and leaves. Which is the moment that Joe's been waiting for and what he's been telling him this whole season, as we see Butcher is now allowing Joe to take full control. As we end this episode, we head into the meeting with Vic, and the plan right now is pretty simple. As Vought and Homelander is what she agreed to do to help the boys to take them out, but unfortunately, Daddy's home. Looking like he's been brought back to the dead, we see Butcher calls off this deal as Hughie wants him to trust him like he did with his younger brother Lenny, but unfortunately that was the old Butcher and in with the new Butcher as we see him pushing Hughie aside and he knocks out Zoe. He lifts up Vic in the air and wraps his murderous arm tentacles around her and rips Vic apart. And this honestly kind of pisses me off because I'm such a big fan of Vic and I feel like she was so wasted this season. Skip all the Kimiko, Frenchie, Hughie, Dad, Mom crap, the Annie crap. We should have gotten so many more scenes with Vic and dealing with the whole thing of her being this Supe who doesn't want to get outed, her giving her daughter the V to protect herself, her letting her dad or pseudo dad out and stand. Like there could have been so many more things to explore with Vic. I feel like she was just wasted and I hate that they killed her off, but that's just me. Let me know what you all think about this final moment with Vic. Did she deserve this moment, or did you all, like me, want her to have more to do in the final season? Now the boys are ready to die, but they let Butcher take the virus as he leaves and smiles and tells the boys,
"Oh, by the way, you're all fucking welcome."
Leaving us with the potential setup of the final season with the boys versus Homelander and Vought and now Butcher. As the news is out about Vic's death, we see that Homelander is yet again broken as his plans have completely went to shit as we see Sage walks in to celebrate. As she tells him, yes, there were a few screwballs, but seamlessly this was all a part of her grand plan. As we also see the news breaking that the president was behind Vic's death and they also associate the boys with helping him, which was recorded by the shapeshifter. Now with Singer arrested, this leaves the president's seat wide open for
House Calhoun. Once they invoke the 25th, he's next in line to be president. He'd like to pledge his allegiance to you.
As Sage tells Homelander that she kept her end of the promise and that she's got his back, and the reason she did all this is because she wanted to see if she could do it, which she did obviously, as she thanks him and leaves with her notebook and tells Homelander,
you know, next time, listen to me.
Next time?
Hells yeah, blonde ambition. Love for phase 2.
As the United States of Homelander has begun, we see the end of this episode showing the members of the boys going their separate ways into hiding. As Homelander sends his armies of Supes after them and tells the people of America,
America will be safe again.
Today, a new age of superheroes begins.
As one by one, we see the boys getting taken in. But first, we see Firecracker still the host of the Truth Bomb and seems to be okay with her health as we watch Zoe gets taken into the Red River. Now, starting with Annie and Hughie, we see that Annie finally got her powers back, which is perfect timing because as they're driving on the road, we see this boat being thrown in the middle of the road as Hughie gets taken away from Annie, and we finally get the return of of Sydney, who we haven't seen since back in season 2. As Annie's choosing to fight to live another day, we see that she finally is able to take flight, as she's been practicing to do that this whole season, as she flies in the sky and manages to escape. As we see Frenchie and Kimiko attempt to board a ship, but they're attacked by Kate and Sam as they get separated as well. But we also see in this moment Kimiko speaks and screams out to Frenchie for the first time this entire show, as we see Frenchie's under the control of Kate. I'm not gonna lie, for a second there I thought that Kate was gonna maybe have Frenchie like unalive himself. Again, I wasn't the biggest fan of Frenchie this season, but I'm glad to see that he will continue on the next season and see where it goes. But honestly, if they would have had Kate kill him right then and there, that would have been pretty dark. Meanwhile, we see MM's in the bathroom, and he was probably most likely headed to his family, as he gets knocked out by the same Supe from Herogasm. As our last shot of season 4 shows Butcher on the road with Joe in the back seat, as he's got the virus, headed to make things right, or at least right in his own head, by killing Homelander. Not quite done yet with this episode. We get a mid-credit scene which shows Calhoun takes Homelander to who I think Sage may have been talking about last week when she mentioned that he's not able to defeat that one person, and it seems to be that one person she was referring to is Soldier Boy, who's still on ice. As we watch, Homelander stands over and looks down at his dad, as we see this look of confusion on Homelander's face, and it's all in his eyes. Now the question is, does he want to kill his dad? Does he want to defeat that one person that Sage may have been talking about? Or does he try to have that father and son relationship that he's always wanted? Either way, I'm a big Soldier Boy fan. I feel like this season sorely missed that character, so I'm excited to see that Soldier Boy will hopefully, fingers crossed, have a much bigger role in season 5. Just giving my general impression about this finale, I thought it was the best episode in the last few weeks, but honestly that doesn't say that much because I thought those other episodes weren't that great, and also I do know that those episodes were being the setup. It was leading all to this. Now, as far as the first 30 minutes of this particular finale, I'll be honest, I thought it was lackluster, but luckily the last 30 minutes is what I've been wishing for this whole season. I wish this whole season would have had this type of stakes and this type of intensity, but unfortunately it didn't. Now, positively speaking about this finale, as I mentioned before, I was a big fan of Evil Annie. That was fun to watch. I always love seeing the craziness that Ashley finds her in, but now her being a Supe is very intriguing, and also seeing Vic getting ripped in half by the evil Butcher, and the last 5 minutes of the boys being taken in by Kate and Sam was great to see. But putting that aside, I'll be honest, this last episode is an example of how this whole season just felt like one giant setup for the 5th and final season of The Boys. I look at all the themes and the character arcs this season, and I can't help but to find just a few that served this particular season and wasn't just filler to waiting for the final season of this show. I think of characters like Hughie getting his mom back in his life just to lose his dad, and all the terrible stuff we saw him go through, but it didn't have a payoff in this particular season. I mean, on a lesser degree, you could say the same thing about Annie, who was going through her identity crisis, which I felt was undercooked, and her having this whole bizarro self that she had to take out, again, just felt underwhelming for me personally. Now, I've said it before, I'm a big fan of MM, that's my boy, but his plot, what exactly was it? Like, they bring up the whole daughter thing and the whole stepdad thing, but they take that out in the first episode, so what was MM's point? Like, yes, he was in charge for most of the season, but then he gave it back to Butcher, then Butcher gave it back to him. Again, I just feel like the show forgotten what to do with MM this season. Now, I've already spoke on Frenchie and Kimiko in this episode and previous episodes, but y'all already know how I feel. Their whole plots was just a waste of time. And don't even get me started on Sage Master Plan, which was just so underwritten in my opinion. The deep and noir in their bromance was just kind of throwaway. It was just meant for like levity and comedy of the show. And look, speaking of the show, I don't want to sound like I'm a hater. I love The Boys. That's why I watch it every week. That's why I do these breakdowns every week. But I gotta admit, yes, it's fun seeing those shocking, gross, hilarious moments, and they were highlighted throughout these last 8 weeks. And again, I've brought them up in all my breakdowns, but I personally feel that this was easily the worst season of The Boys so far. The people that have criticized this season about being too woke or too political, they're crazy to me, because this show has been political since the very first episode. But as far as my personal opinion, when it comes to the more focused political plot, the more of the presidential plot that we got this season, Obviously, regardless of if you're a left side or the right side, this show was very one-sided with their satire, and it was very one-note, and it just lacked the depth and the cleverness from the previous seasons. The only characters to me that were handled in a way that had some remnants of the old times were characters like Vic, even though, like, again, I feel like they were so underused this season. I think of someone like Butcher. Now, again, the whole Joe thing was pretty obvious for a lot of us, but I did like what we got from Butcher, and even though Homelander is the worst person in the world, he's my favorite villain on TV, as I've said many times, but there's even moments that I think about Homelander and how I kind of feel disappointed because, as I said a couple weeks ago, the whole 4th episode, I want to say, when he had his whole reborn of like removing his humanity, what was the point of that episode? Because as we saw as the following episodes, he was pretty much the same Homelander. He was forgiving people. He was letting people kind of take advantage of him in a sense. So that whole 4th episode just kind of fell on deaf ears to me personally. I will give some love to A-Train and his redemption arc this season. I'm kind of torn on Ryan because yes, I like where they send the character and how they set him up at the end of this episode, which kind of opens the door for that satisfying fight with his dad or Butcher or his granddad and Soldier Boy. But besides moments like this in the finale, Ryan was kind of forgotten about for most of the second half in the middle of this season. But the saving grace to me in this very underwritten show as far as this season goes, I love the performances. Like, even though they were saying some ridiculous stuff, they were out of character for most of the season, at least in my opinion, and also a lot of the plots felt recycled. I love these actors, and I think they do such a great job. I know Antony Starr gets most of the praise, but across the board to me, all these actors do great in their roles, even if their characters aren't written the same like they used to be. I'm going to wrap up this video by saying this. Season 5 has the opportunity to correct what I thought were the wrongs in Season 4 and go back to the good writing, not worrying about all these setups and these half-baked ideas, just go balls to the wall. For example, we got Ashley, who's now a Supe, who can maybe team up with A-Train, who they might actually get members from Gen V to help find the boys who was taken by Homelander's army. And again, we get these final showdowns with all these big characters, but the big one that I think we're all been waiting for, and I'm excited to see, which again would be Butcher, Ryan, Homelander, and most likely now Soldier Boy. Alright, after me going on and on and on, it is your turn to let me know your thoughts on this finale, but also share your overall thoughts of this season in general. And of course, I want to know your thoughts and your theories or predictions of what's to come in the next and final season of The Boys, but also what do you hope to see in Gen V, and also whatever this Mexico spinoff is going to be as well. Before calling it a wrap, I want to take the time to thank you all for anyone that's been watching either one video or if you watch all of my breakdowns for the last 8 weeks. I can't thank you enough. Keep an eye out for a video I'm going to be making that's going to be combining all the breakdowns into this one giant recap. Again, thank you all for the continued support. Check out my playlist of all my boys coverage. You all have been awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next breakdown.